Dodson Action for Health, and I am doing a review of a DNA test that I've done on a client that I met just before Christmas. This is Jonty. If you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Jonty Abbott, so I'm an independent IT consultant. I work in the same offices as Nick, and that's how we met, and we got chatting about what Nick does, and I thought that was something that I'd like to look into.
Without further ado, we'll just move on through a number of questions that I've prepared. They're not generic because I don't ask everybody the same questions, but these were, as I say, specific. So to start with, what actually made you decide to take the DNA methylation test?
So I think a number of things, really. So I'm a regular gym goer, and health is important. I turned 50 last year, and I have young children.
Yeah.
And there were a number of different things that I was observing about myself that I wasn't able to improve to my liking, and I wasn't sure whether that was what I was doing or whether it was more about me and or being tailored to me. I got chatting to yourself, and you suggested that I could make a breakthrough if I learned more about what was particular to me. And I've had a few injuries in the past. I've had some issues with IBS and energy levels, and I was looking to address those. And I thought a tailored program might be a way of, because you're so time poor as a parent, as a business owner, that when you do stuff for yourself, you want it to be focused on making a difference.
Yeah.
And this seemed like an opportunity to understand more about me and about what I can do.
It's really interesting about being a parent, because there's a certain thing where you cannot afford to waste that time, and you have to put the best investment into you in order to put the best investment into your children. So you have to be the best that you can be in order to be the best parent and do the best for them. So that's not being selfish. That's actually thinking ahead to what you're going to need, rather than, oh, I've hit a wall, what do I do now? That's absolutely brilliant. What were you hoping to discover or improve?
I think energy levels is something that I was hoping to improve. Young kids,
absolutely.
Independent, self-employed. I coach football, grassroots football as well. So the diary is always full. And I was finding that at times it'd get towards not even the end of the evening and I was ready for a nap. I just wanted more energy to keep going.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether that was my diet or my lifestyle or a mixture of the two. And so energy levels, and also I was struggling with, this is embarrassing to talk about, but irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. Sure. And I wondered, I had some injuries in the past. I had my Achilles reconstructed following an injury. I took a lot of, what's they called?
Anti-inflammatories.
For infections, what they called?
The antibiotics.
I took a lot of antibiotics. I had infection on the wound that was created to reconstruct my Achilles. Yeah. And I wondered whether they had upset my flora and fauna in my stomach as well. Yeah. It was ultimately, Nick, it was about, I need to invest a bit of time in myself and my own health. Yeah. But also for my family, for my kids. Yeah. I need to be around for a decent amount of time to ensure their futures. Yeah. So the healthier I am, the more able I am to support them.
Would you consider that what you've done to be a good investment?
Absolutely. I think it's got me thinking about my health. It's got me focused on my health. And I like the science. That appeals to me in understanding what's going on at a cellular level. You really start to think about what you're doing and what you put in and you get out, and you are what you eat. Yeah. So it's a lot to take in, and I think you did warn me about that.
Your pace.
It's a start, and I think it's a start that I'm maintaining. It will build momentum, and it may be something that I can help to educate my children on.
Absolutely. No, that's brilliant. You've taken the first steps in having the test, and you've got the results, and you're implementing the results. And one of the things that I want to stress to our viewers is that this is not something that you would implement, not something you take lightly, and it's not something you would implement as in over a week or even a month. When you got the results, I give you a timeline. So this is what you'll do on the first week, or this is what's expected. If you don't have a timeline, you've got nothing to work towards, you've got no accountability. So the timeline gives you the accountability. So it would be, this will be week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3. And as you're going forwards like that, we'll work over approximately 3 months. So by the end of the 3 months, you should understand it, not totally, but you should understand what you need to do and why. So are you finding that very helpful?
It was really helpful because as you told me through the reports that we got back, that you initially got back, that you sent me, they're comprehensive, and there's a lot of information, which I have started to look at and found interesting. But the report that you drew out for me and that timescale, it gives you a way of easily chunking it down and feeling like you can make progress. But it's an education as well, but you can make progress straight away whilst you're educating yourself on the rest of it.
You'll notice you'll go back to things to have a look at them, and they'll make more sense, they'll sink in, because it might be something that you view on TV or something like that, and then you'll just go, oh yeah, I remember that. You know what I mean? And you'll go back and you'll check that, and then it'll make more sense. That's how learning works going forwards. So when you got the results, this is always an interesting question. When you got the results, what surprised you the most?
Okay. What surprised me, I think it was quite nice to hear that I've got a longevity gene. I have to say that was the positive, was great to hear. I think the other thing that I found quite interesting actually is that my wife and my friends joke that I'm a bit like a Labrador. Like I can never be satisfied with the amount of food in front of me. And apparently, according to the report, genetically, I am predisposed towards low satiety when I'm eating. So there was a little bit of, that actually sounds like me. So it was quite nice to hear, because I'm like saying to my wife, see, I'm genetically predisposed. But also, it was good to understand that, okay, so I can look at ways of controlling that. But I think those two are the ones that come to mind at the moment anyway.
They're at each end of the spectrum. It's interesting. I had a little 5 minutes look through your report last night actually, and I do remember you don't have a lot in the mid-range. You have some in the green and you have some in the red, and there's only 2, and they're the dark red. And most people have a lot more in the mid-range. It doesn't mean that they're great, but it doesn't mean that it's something that you should look at. And even when we're looking at in the red on the traffic light, it's something that if you change, there's no problem whatsoever. The only thing with yours is the 2 critical ones, and the 2 critical ones are to do with processing pathways of inflammation. And what I want to mention is, when I looked through it last night, what I noticed is there's different recommendations for each one of these 2 pathways. Now, that's not a contradiction. It's that one of these would indicate this amount and the other one would indicate this amount. So the overlap is the maximal amount, right? So when we're looking at curcumin, we're looking at you taking the baseline of curcumin. What I've put down is your baseline of curcumin. So if I'm saying taking 2,000 milligrams, that's your baseline. And when I'm looking at your vitamin D3, and I've recommended 9,000 IUs, the new recommendation for baseline now is 8,895. It's just how it's worked out, and that is your baseline to get the blood levels. It's so many, let me work it out, it's so many nanograms per deciliter, something like that. I can't remember. The baseline is 8,000, almost 9,000, right? Now that's what everybody should be on, functioning just baseline. And if you've got anything that's really using that up a lot quicker, then you should be looking at above that. And these are days when you can up that. In the summertime, your body gets adequate vitamin D3. It needs a couple of other substrates with it. It needs the magnesium, it needs the zinc, and it needs the boron for absolute absorption. So basically, if it's getting these in foods and it's getting the sun, and you're taking your baseline vitamin D3, that's fine, that's great, that's good. But in the winter, your baseline is only a survival baseline, so you can actually put that up. I myself take 20,000 IU a day across the winter months, and I can put that down in the summer months. So I'll put it down to something like 10,000 in the summer months, but it's like 20,000 in the winter months. Does it make a massive difference to how I feel? I feel generally well all the time with that. And it's something that I think that everybody needs to address. And when, like in your report, when I brought these things out, I was very careful to stress that these are the substrates and this is the baseline that you need to work from. The recommendations, like I do believe there's some resveratrol and spirulina and things in yours. And then there's the reasons for that, the reasoning behind. And this comes because we're looking at certain gene traits and we're looking at slight dysfunction in them and how to boost that and what's needed to support that. And if you're honest, you'll say these are only just little things, but these little things make a massive difference. It's microdosing, really, that makes a massive difference. So the biggest mistake I believe that a lot of people make, I see people making this all the time, is, right, I'll dive straight into this and I'll have tons of this and tons of this. Now, if you have problems with methylation in certain areas, that can actually make you worse. It can make you feel ill. And people just go, oh, I'm not methylating. I must need TMG then because that's what's being advertised, TMG. And they take the maximum dose of TMG. So you go from not methylating to over-methylating. And as we said, as we were talking earlier, methylation is just an on-off switch. And so there's an on-off to open the door and there's an on-off to close the door behind you. So we might be opening one side of the methylation but closing down the other side of it. So this is where you can feel quite ill if you over-methylate. Were there any findings that explain things that you've been experiencing but couldn't figure out why for yourself? I think you've mentioned one.
Yes, I think the satiety was one. My family and my family's history, the liver and the liver fat critical area. That's something that I know my dad had talked about and he'd had problems with in the past.
Right.
And also heart disease is something that came through, and like grandparents have struggled with heart disease. So I think those were consistent with my family history, my understanding. I was thinking that makes sense in terms of my family, my heritage. I think also there was an indicator around muscle tissue and injury and bone health and so on. I suffered repeated dislocation of a shoulder following an injury which I had corrective surgery for, and then we've already talked about my Achilles reconstruction. I'm not sure, but it's certainly, there are areas that I go, that's consistent with my experience, and now I've got evidence for it, and I've also got a plan to reduce that risk. That's really of interest to me.
That's the main thing. That's what you need to find out. That's what you need to know. As you go on, you can refer back to the test and you can just look at it and just go, oh yeah, there was a couple of inflammatory markers. And this is to do with everything in life, but also this inflammation can raise as well due to your training, etc. But recommendations covered these quite adequately. So as long as you're implementing, as you go down, you'll see each one as you're looking at it, it'll just tell you a little bit more, and then your supplements grow a little bit more. So you're adding a little bit more to it, but they're all specific to you. Somebody shared on the story several months back their supplements, and they just had a counter, massive counter of generic supplements. And it's really a guessing game. It's like playing the lottery when you're doing that. And you can, for you could overdose on one thing because it's not really overdosing, but for you it's overdosing. And then you can be getting not enough on something else, and you can end up feeling no better or even a little worse. So this is the why that's answered for you, like with the genetic testing. How far through the list are you at the moment?
In terms of the plan that you put together,
Yeah.
I say still, I'll be honest and say it's still early days.
Okay.
And
no, that's great.
yeah, but I think what's been easy to do is to pick out the recommendations where I'm like, I'm already doing that, or I'm
ticked off,
and perhaps I need to do it more regularly, and perhaps I'm doing it because somewhere I've been getting the message that it's good for me. So I think some of the exercise recommendations that you made and the diet recommendations that you made, I'm like, okay, I'm already doing that, but perhaps I'm not doing it as regularly as I could do. So what I've done is, it's given me a boost actually to dial those things. I'm like, great, these things, I think particularly around, you pulled out that diet-wise, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, These are things that I already have in my diet,
Yeah.
but I enjoy them, so I can do more of those and have them more regularly. I think the omega-3s and the oily fish, that's not, I don't know why, but I had a bit of a blocker around preparing meals with oily fish in. I'm good with chicken, I'm good with lean mince and making meals. So that's given me a little nudge to get in some mackerel, to get in some sardines and start eating those more regularly.
It doesn't have to be, the thing is with something like that, it doesn't have to be daily.
Yeah.
And so you're putting it in across your week. And I did put a recommendation in there for a very good omega-3 oil. And the problem that we're having today with omega-3 oils is a lot of companies have had their oils tested and they've been tested high on rancidity. So this means that not only is the oil no good for you, it's totally the opposite. And what we're finding is there's only about 2 or 3 companies that showed up that's been actually good for this. One company that I know of, they pulled all their stock from the warehouse shelves because what they did is they had it tested again and they found it to be high in rancidity, so they binned the lot and they're sourcing some different omega-3 oil. And this is the thing, we found 2 sources of omega-3 oil and one of them I recommended for you, and it's the Barefoot omega-3, it's the Optimal that they use, and it's actually lemon flavour. And if you look, you can see where it comes from, where it's sourced and everything else. And a good indicator of whether the oil is rancid or not is if you take the oil and then you're belching it and you've got this terrible taste that's coming back and you're belching it for the next couple of hours with this terrible taste, and you don't do that. You may belch once, obviously, as you consumed it with your food, but that's it, and it doesn't give you that terrible taste after. It is actually quite nice. It has a nice, quite satiating effect, and when you take the oil in, that's okay, and then you don't feel, it gives you probably an hour longer before you want something to eat, because of the oil, it's slowly leaving your gut. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. What were you hoping to discover or improve from all the testing?
I think, look, I was looking for a general uplift in energy, in mental positivity. I think that it's giving me that. I wanted to learn a little bit more about, we haven't talked about this yet, but I was worried about lactose and lactose intolerance. And I think in the result, it showed that I shouldn't be having a problem with that. And again, I'm back to some of the antibiotics that I had may have reduced my ability to digest that. And the suggestion was it was actually great because in your report it said about that, and to start reintroducing it slowly. And that is my experience actually. So I had moved away from cow's milk altogether, but now I'm starting to reintroduce it in a small way. And actually it's been okay. So I'm back to, what was your question again? I had something else.
I think it was I just moved it down a little bit from that. The improvements, what were you hoping to discover and improve?
I think better sleep, higher energy levels. I want to improve my fitness, reduce some weight. I think the other thing I was concerned about that I talked to you about was I seem to have been around between 16 and 17 stone for years. And I wanted to get an idea about whether that was right. My body seems to refuse to drop below 16 stone. And is that right? Would I be better off losing weight? I think at the moment, I'm following a more controlled diet plan that's obviously been informed by the report. I'm doing dry January at the moment as well. I've been getting to the gym and I've been doing those more kind of, I can't remember the phrase for it, Nick, but I think the report advised that I do like longer sets with lighter weights, and I focus on that kind of exercise, which I've found myself already doing, and I've just been doing a bit more of that. And honestly, it's funny, I don't know whether it's fate, but last night I probably had the best night's sleep I've had in a long time. Went to bed 10:30, fell asleep, woke up just before my alarm at 7. Solid night's sleep, didn't get up in the middle of the night. And that's what I want more of, because I'm buzzing today.
Yeah, that's good,
and I feel more positive as well. Body feels good, mind feels good.
You just reminded me of something. I've got something that I created for a lead magnet, and it's free. And if you don't what I'll do is I'll pass it on to you, and you have your own report anyway, but this works within the report, but people don't often see it because it's part of the report. But on a standalone item, I have a lead magnet, which is a number of things that your doctor will never tell you if you're going for testing or anything like that. And there's a number of basic things that work within this implementation, because the DNA report on that side, it's massively complex. There's reasons why Colette's part of a group, and they're coaches and PTs, and one of their clients could not sleep and mentioned on the group, does anybody know any reason why? And I'm like, yeah, I do, but the point is I can't put all this information into a group chat, CompT genes and how this will affect your circadian rhythm, etc, etc. But when I was looking at yours, this is the point, when I was looking at yours and your CompT, and I was putting the report together, it's the many littles that make a much. And this is one thing that I use quite a lot, because there's no one thing, so you don't dive into, I'll have tons of that, because you can overdo any one thing. It's the many littles that make a much. It's like a fantastic recipe. It's a recipe to get you functioning correctly. And you're at this point now where you're getting a great night's sleep because your circadian rhythm's functioning. And if anything starts to change from what you're doing, this is why I recommended journaling, so that you make a note of what you did at that particular time, and then you can see anything that changes from that, and you'll see the difference. I know the difference in my life. If I watch TV and I fall asleep watching TV and then go to bed, I don't have such a great night's sleep. But if I wait and I'm like, the first signs of me being tired, I'm thinking, I'm not that tired. But I go to bed and I'm like, lights out within 2 minutes, and I have an epic night's sleep. And the difference is an hour. That hour later going to bed, and I really don't feel like I'm that tired because I'm not falling asleep. But I'm just like, if I think about it, I just feel like I could stay awake longer. Now that is my mind just going, productiveness. Let's try and be more productive. No, let's go to bed at this time, and then when we get up in the morning, we'll not feel tired. We'll get up and we'll feel like, I'm all right. I actually feel pretty good this morning within the first 5 minutes. And that's just the 1 hour that can make the difference. And if you're honest with yourself, because, come on, let's be honest, we all like to think like we're a little bit immortal. Do you know what I mean? I am impervious to all these things, you know what I mean? And we're not. The little things, they have a little knock on. It comes from a Spanish saying that many littles make a much. And it's the ingredients that you can add to make a meal absolutely fantastic, or the tiny things that you can add to make your life absolutely deplorable, if you like.
It's really interesting, those. So now you're making me look back and think about yesterday, and think about what was different to yesterday.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the journaling starts to help, isn't it? Because you remember that.
Yeah.
But look, if I could reproduce how I felt this morning on a regular basis, I would start feeling a little bit more invincible and fantastic, because I really did. I woke up maybe 2-3 minutes before the alarm went off.
Yeah.
So I was able to switch it off so it didn't go off. And I got straight out of bed. And I was like in the shower and getting ready for the day.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that all the time, so I would love to feel more like that.
No, that's great.
I'm thinking last night, I didn't take my phone to bed. I took a magazine that I've subscribed to, and I sat in bed and I read that for a short while. I've not done that in a long time. And I think perhaps, so I'm thinking, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to take my phone to bed with me. I'm going to leave it downstairs. I'm going to read.
If you watch TV before you go to bed, the blue light, don't buy the cheap ones, get the more expensive ones. The proper blue light blocking glasses, they're a big help, because anything that is LED has a very high resolution flicker, and it really excites the neurons in your brain, and it has a very big effect on your nervous system and your capacity to be able to relax as a result. So the blue light blocking glasses are an absolute biggie. Colette's got some, I haven't. I actually don't use them because I can't see TV unless I've got proper glasses, but they really do work. And as you say, the reading before bed, because the reading, it engages your brain in a nice way. It's quite relaxing in that way, and you can make sense of what you're reading. and you get chance to relax within that as you feel like, right, it's okay. I remember a family relative says, yeah, we go to bed, and he says, nah. And he's just telling me the routine. He said, go to bed, and he says, and this is how he put it, he says, and I read for half an hour. He says, and then shutters come down, and he says, and I've fallen asleep with my book on bed, and then I wake up like that in the morning. And I'm like, that's great. I said, this is brilliant. You know what I mean? It's a good way, that little bit of reading, to unwind at night. And if you've overdone something, where you go to bed and you're actually dreaming about the thing that you've overdone, you know when you've overdone it. But sleep, really important. It's non-negotiable, or it should be your number one non-negotiable. We'll move on quickly. How easy was it to understand what you needed to do from the action guide? This is good feedback for me, that's all.
It's straightforward. I think the fact that you put it into 1 to 2 weeks, I think, and beyond that, I could have just cut to that bit. You talked me through it, and I could just cut to that. So it was a timeline, like a startup guide that summarised the recommendations into. So there is a lot of information. It just made it really simple to get started. So don't run before you can walk. These are the changes that you can make in the first 1 to 2 weeks. These are the changes you can make in weeks 3 to 4. And then beyond that. And I think it took me up to about 3 months. And it was easy, it was good to understand, and it referenced back to the detail that you taught me through.
So the idea was, like, when I was designing it, I had to think, right, what do I want to see? What do I need? What do I want to see? What would make it easy to me? And the question I always ask people is, whenever anybody tells you something, you've just got to say, what does that look like to me? Because that's the best way to phrase a question to anybody, in order for them to be able to see what they need. Because everybody's intelligent. It's just that certain types of teaching doesn't raise a question for anybody to be challenged in the thinking, very real way. To bring that intelligence out, that's the question that you should always ask yourself. So I'm asking myself, designing this thing, it's like, what does this look like to me? I don't want it to be a dummy's guide, as it were. I want it to be something that's going to take people along and be encouraging and what have you. And if you think that's what it did for you.
I think so, and it was visual as well. There was a timeline.
Yeah.
I think sometimes pictures are easier to understand than words. Yeah. So I think that certainly helped as well.
Well, good, that's good. Now, you take out from this, how easy was it to actually understand? Because I said I didn't make it a dummy's guide. I know you've answered that, but on a scale of 1 to 10, now I'm going to ask you, how easy was it to understand, looking at the guide, what you needed to do?
So the guide that you sent me?
On a 1 to 10, how easy was it?
I think it was a 7 out of 10 for me. It's layered. You layered it nicely. So there was summary information to get right in, and then into detail. I will read it more, because it's definitely something that I can go back to and reference, and I'll give you another score once I've done a bit more reading on it.
That's brilliant.
But certainly in terms of ease of access and looking through it, and I liked the visuals in it as well. It was, it's good.
Out of all the changes that you had to make, which were the easiest to implement?
So I think the easiest, maybe I'm cheating a little bit that they're not changes, but the easiest things to do were to look at the recommendations that I felt that I was already doing, but perhaps not doing enough of. So certainly it's, okay, I've got some good habits, let's make sure that I continue those. And it comes back to what we were talking about at the start of the interview. It's time's a factor, prioritization's key. So the easiest thing for me to do was look at what I was doing right and think that baseline can't change. I'm doing those things right. I know how to do those things. I think the next set of changes will be, and I've not got to yet, is I have started to change my diet. So I've started to eat things that I didn't used to eat. And then it's about the supplements, which I haven't got to yet. So I think that'll be the next phase. But yeah, to answer your question directly, the easiest changes to make were actually increasing the good habits that I already had. But what was fundamental to that was understanding that they were good habits. A
lot of people look at supplements and just think, I can manage as long as I take my supplements. And they are supplements because they supplement diet. And I'll tell you, supplement that I take, it's NAC, it's actually Glynac. So it's NAC attached to a glycine molecule, which is better for carrion and absorption. And what I tend to do is I have times where I don't use it and times where I do use it. So what I will do is, there's no loading phase with it. So I take it and I take it for a couple of weeks. And then when I'm aware of the effects of it, if you take too much of it, it converts to glutathione and it tends to dry membranes out. So if I start to get dry eyes, and that's really the main one that I know. I get up in the morning, I've got very dry eyes. I know that my glutathione levels are high enough. And then that's when I'll not take it, and I'll not take it then for several days. And then I'll come back on. So I usually got about 5 days where I'm off it, and then I'm back on it. It's more important to use during the winter months. Obviously during the summer months, you don't need it as much because it's related to your vitamin D3 and your antioxidant formula. But that's one of the things that's, it's up and down. And mentioning, we're going back to how I started talking about it, it's the supplements. So the most important thing is that you supplement your diet, and your supplements aren't your total aim. You do need to supplement your diet now. There's certain things that are recommended, and they're a baseline for you, but they're not a baseline as far as supplements go for your baseline substrates. And one of the things that I've actually recommended is curcumin. Now, curcumin it's an anti-inflammatory antioxidant, and it also affects your metabolism as well. And it's involved in lots of other things. I've recommended it's not a standard type, it contains the piperine, which most curcumins do now, but it's a super high dose. Having to pop four capsules a day, you're just taking 2 because it's a super high dose. It's something like 760 milligrams of curcuminoids. So this will make a difference. It makes a massive difference to me. If I don't take them, I know that I feel a little bit off, but with training I don't recover as quick. Things stay sore for longer. So it really does work.
That's really interesting. And I think, you know, that I think when you make a change, if you can observe the impact. So it's back to the advice you were giving me about making these micro changes and observe the effect on you. I'm really interested in making that change, because I am up in my physical activity. I'm doing lots more walking, and I'm going to the gym more regularly. Just started playing a five-a-side on a Sunday night as well. If I'm supplementing with
curcumin,
and I see that I'm recovering better, then that's an observable improvement.
With the
definitely something that would be more welcome.
With the supplements, they're going to help you to recover faster. Now, this is depending on what kind of type of person you are, whether you're more extrovert or more introvert, because a more extrovert person just wants to keep doing more and more because you love what you're doing. So the danger in that, mindset-wise, is that you've got a kind of an invincibility about you, and you do more and more. So the danger in that is what? It's that you love what you're doing so much that you don't recognise that you're actually burning out, because it doesn't feel like burnout because there's no mental stress. So the danger is that you burn out in doing what you're doing because you want to be more, you do more of it. I love this, I don't want to go to bed. But you've still got to, then the discipline comes in, where you've got to be a disciplinarian to yourself, where you just got to go, look, you might love it, but the point is you should love it, but you've still got to make yourself go to sleep so that you can get up tomorrow morning and still keep loving it. Otherwise, in 2 days' time, you're not going to love it when you're struggling to get up in the morning. This is a part of your routine. So there's always a discipline needed, and the discipline doesn't come on its own. It needs consistency and commitment. Obviously, that your passion and your purpose are driving you, but you need these 3s. You need the 2 C's and the D to add to it. You'll not be loving it if you carry on like this in a week without being authoritarian, because I think the thing is that people are most driven by the most passion driven, and then the discipline is you being, it's really self-love. It's you giving, you look, if I don't get this, I know this is how I end up. And that's the discipline that you're adding to yourself there. Energy levels now versus before on a scale of 1 to 10. So what were your energy levels before and what are they now?
I would say my energy levels before were low, 4 or 5 out of 10. And I would say at the moment I'm an 8 or 9 out of 10.
Excellent, excellent. The sleep quality has improved, and you seem to have hit an apex in that at the moment. So if it's a case of looking at what you did to maintain that, because really sleep's everything. Let's have a look. I think you've mentioned these other things as well before. The bigger picture. What does success look for? This is a really good one. What does success look like for you 3 months from now and 6 months from now? Because in 3 months, you should have got through everything, and 6 months, you should have been applying it for 3 months.
Yeah, I think that is a good question. And I think consistency is what I'd be looking for at the end of the 6 months. And also that I am doing it as it's habitual. I'm not having to remind myself.
That's it.
I'm not having to re-educate myself on stuff that I've already done. It's a lifestyle change. And that's where I'd expect to be after 6 months if I follow through with the plan. I think after 3 months, I think I'd like to be observing the benefits and seeing that I've got more energy, I'm feeling fitter, I'm sleeping well and regularly. And I think at the moment I'm having good days and I'm having less good days. And I think by 3 months I'd like to be saying, do you know what? I maybe look back over the week and go, I've had 3 or 4 good days out of 7, whereas previously it might have been 1 or 2. And then in 6 months would be wonderful to think bad day is an exception. And that's a bad day in terms of mental health, energy levels, sleep, outlook on life. That's where I'd like to be. And I'd like it to boost me so that I feel like I have more energy and time for those around me. And I'm less introspective and I'm thinking about my kids, my wife, my family, my friends, and being more proactive in terms of life.
You pass it on to your children because you can't. We're growing up with my children and they're adults now. They're 38 and 41. And I know that you can't lie to your kids because they call you out, that's BS, straight away, right? I know, I see you do that. You know what I mean? So I never am. I've always practiced what I preached and they've always seen me, can I try some of that? Yeah, of course you can. So they've always done that and they've always followed them habits. It's really, as you say, it's habitual. It's what you're doing on a regular basis without you actually having to think about it, because that mental capacity, it really does take it out of you. You know what I mean? When you have to think about everything, you sort of be tired by dinner time. So that's why we fall back on routine. We're just going to close this now.
So you go point for falling back on routine. I work with people who are trying to change the way that they work. If you think about, if you start a new job, generally, like at the end of the day, you're absolutely shattered. You've had so many new things to try and take on. You go to bed earlier, but once you've got used to it, you're able to be more efficient.
It's routine,
but I just love what you just said there about falling back on routine, because it is easy to do. But if your routine's not good, it's easy to fall back on a poor routine. It really is.
So you're building, it's like under times of stress, you're going to have to get yourself good habits, right? So you're going to build those good habits, which takes anything from 21 to 321 days, depending on how it fits in with what you've previously done. If it's something similar, then you're only minorly changing it, so it doesn't take as long, in theory anyway. So if you've got good habits, under times of stress, you will always fall back on habit. A friend of mine, I don't see him anymore. I haven't seen him in a really long time. He's in the Marines. And he was talking to me about training. And he says, when everything kicks off, your training comes in. And then you realise why your drill sergeant's been screaming at you in your face, spitting on you while he's screaming at you, and why there's all this distraction going off around you and everything. Because when it kicks off, you've got to fall back on what you've been taught and your training and everything. And it's the same in life. You've got to fall back. You will automatically fall back on them habits. So if you've implemented good habits, that's it. And the main thing is that routine is everything, because if you've established a good routine, habits are small portions of a routine. It's like subroutines. So basically, when you're working through your daily routine, that will take up most of your day. And then you just do your thinking, your pure thinking for somebody who brings you a problem, or when you've got to think through something for somebody else, or you've got a problem, you presented me with a problem. One of the worst things about thinking about problems is if you just go, a problem. You know what I mean? This is a challenge. You'll never just go, oh no, not another problem. Because then you go into default mode and it's like, oh no, I see this as a negative. And if you see it as a challenge, that's the other thing that you're looking at. You're looking at like mindset in that, and you're framing it clearly. Because if you look at problems as possibilities, do you know what I mean? Because I don't think that any problem is something that's thrown at you to floor you. I think it's a case of life's full of tests, and the test that you fail in keeps repeating itself until you pass it. So you never fail in life. And that's a good way to see things. So I think when you're looking at things and going forwards, it's like that I've got this routine now that's like a cascade. It keeps me going, it keeps me rolling and what have you. The worst thing is distractions, but that's something else to think about. We're just going to wind this up now. I've got 2 more questions. Would you recommend this to others, and if so, why?
I would recommend it to others, absolutely. I think what I'm learning is that there are lots of generic ways that you can improve your energy, your health, but understanding how to tailor those to you will get more results more quickly.
Excellent, yeah.
And it's results that you're looking for, because that gives you the motivation to keep doing it.
Yep. If you could sum this experience up in 1 sentence, what would it be?
That's a challenge, Nick, because I'm quite a good talker.
So would you recommend this to others, and if so, who and why?
So I would recommend it to others, and I'd recommend it because it's giving you more of a tailored approach to what's going to make an impact for you. And I think there's lots of generic advice out there, and I mean, some of the advice I've got from this report is consistent with other advice, but then it's added this particular tailoring to me, which is going to give me more of an impact. And I think when you get an impact, when you see results, that gives you the push you need, it gives you the boost you need to keep doing it. And I think there's nothing more frustrating than trying things and not getting any results. So I'll absolutely, for that reason, as well as many others, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, which there's a similar question here, is like, knowing what you know now about your DNA testing, what would you have said to yourself 6 months ago?
Yeah, okay. What would I have said to myself 6 months ago, knowing what I know now? I think I think that the satiety thing has been really interesting to me.
Yeah.
I think that understanding that if I take a little bit more care about feeling full and eating the right foods to feel full, that is something that I control and something that I should look into for myself. I think the lactose, the concerns about lactose intolerance, I think the report came out that I shouldn't be concerned, and it's more likely to be related to the antibiotics that I've had, and to start reintroducing it slowly. I think I'd like to have known that earlier, and then I think just the things that I can increase that I'm already doing. So it's really nice to get positive confirmation that some of the habits that you've already got are great habits. Keep doing them, and because you're not doing them just because you enjoy them. They're actually good for you.
It's good. And it's basically, if you could sum up your experience in 1 sentence, it could be 1 paragraph if you like, what would it be?
So it's been educational, and I've enjoyed that. There's a science behind it. I think what you're saying to me is, if I could sum it up briefly, what this experience has meant to me, it's been an education on what's good for me and what's not good for me. It's given me a boost in terms of what to increase doing that I'm already doing. Plus, it's given me some new stuff to work on that I wasn't aware of, and I'm looking forward to it making a big impact on my life. And at the moment, it feels like it is. And 3 months, 6 months, we'll know more.
Brilliant, excellent. That's really good. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think's important for people to know about this process?
I think the way that you've done it with me, Nick, has been great, because you have talked in terms of the science and you have given me a summary.
Is there anything that you think you would benefit more from? With when I give you the personalised bio plan for yourself, it's the PDF. Is there anything that you think that could be added to that to make it any better, any clearer?
So I think what I'm really interested in is, because what's fascinating about the report is the things that are particular to you. So it's almost like I wanted the technical name for it. This is my trait. Right. And then I wanted, and this is what that means. And then this is whether it's it's all opportunity, but whether this is a supporting factor or a constraining factor, and then to leverage that. This is the habit change that you need to make. So I can just go back to it and understand myself. That's what I've started to do in terms of the information you give me, is pull that together into a bit of a cheat sheet for this is Jonty Abbott, this is his DNA traits, these are what these are his superpowers, these are his kryptonite, if you like, and then this is how to turn that into a whole positive in terms of routine and habit changes.
Brilliant.
What you're doing is empowering me to interpret and to apply and be curious and make decisions based on myself and what's right for me, and that's quite empowering, actually, to think that I can do that.
And it's not just your responses, it's that you have seen it as a massive improvement, and that's really the outcome that we were looking for, that it's been a massive improvement to the individual, and in this case to Jonty. And the questions, it's self-explanatory, basically the answers, everything's there. So if you're interested in taking a DNA test, you've heard the evidence here, so if you're interested, you just drop me a message.